and chemist. And chemist square and Thornley Square Sol Square Thornley Square and Thornley Square Sol Patterson chemist Square Sol and Thornley Square Sol Patterson chemist. New South Wales has recorded 935 if
Home by Christmas, they were
home.
Best at home, a quiet, desperate. What you thought it, what you.
Definitely. I've got friends that
Parents.
Is known.
My mum missing.
In London.
cars driver.
Car you stopped and assist and attest in.
A Perth babysitter's been A Perth babysitter's been charged. Perth babysitter's been charged with another 190 child sex offences. As Louise Rennie explains, 9 more alleged victims have been identified.
Jareth Harries Markham was originally facing 9 child abuse charges, but today that number grew to almost 200. Police say they've now identified 12 victims of the Perth babysitter, all aged under 10, the youngest an 8-month-old baby. The 23-year-old advertised his services on various internet sites before allegedly sexually abusing the children he was paid to look after and recording some of it on video. Mother of 5 Emma says she too was contacted by Jareth Harries Markham in April but didn't hire him.
Things just weren't right. His references didn't match up. References just weren't right.
Hire him.
Things just weren't right. His references didn't match up. So I was like, yeah, no. So I was like, yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. I also did go on. No, thank you. No, thank you. I also did go on his. No, thank you. I also did go on his social media page to see what was public to what I could see, and what he did post I wasn't okay with. Mothers in I wasn't okay with. Mothers in 100% 100% Mothers in 100%. I can't stress enough. It was important.
The accused predator has yet to plead to any of the charges and will face court again next month.
Just a day after quitting the front bench, supporters of Christian Porter
and
commitments in a phone call. A French government spokesperson
and the UK.
France is demanding France is demanding compensation over the scrapped submarine deal. A French government spokesperson says countries who failed to respect their commitments. Countries who failed to respect their commitments. President Emmanuel Macron and his US President Emmanuel Macron and his US counterpart Joe Biden are expected to discuss the situation in a phone call this week. A massive evacuation effort is underway as a volcano erupts on the Spanish Canary island of La Palma, sending plumes of smoke and ash into the air. Soldiers have been deployed to help people escape as lava streams towards villages.
He should be given another chance at some future time in a senior role.
It is no more acceptable for a member of Parliament to keep a donation secret than it is for a minister to keep a donation secret.
Labor isn't letting this go.
Alert with more than 22,000
Green Stars first here vaccine.
Tony, who watched from home in northern Victoria.
To see him up on that
Wines have
Spa Joondalup today for a light session. Later this week, the Demons taking to
Sherry Petito.
Underway for 2 days, just
documenting Wyoming in the United States for rising from the crash site. Aircraft has announced his country opponent in Kentucky sneak into Auckland during lockdown with a look at what is made.
When you think this
that's not maybe. Footprint for the
five future even where they work from. 5 on this.
Good evening. First tonight, tributes.
Stunning Spring Monday. Employees at Twiggy Forrest's company Fortescue Future Industries will soon be able to decide when they come to work, how many holiday future day. Employees at Twiggy Forrest's company. Employees at Twiggy Forrest's Employees at Twiggy Forests company Fortescue Future Industries will soon be able to decide when they come to work, how many holidays they take, and even where they work from, based on their team's productivity. Let's take this further on The Pulse. Today we welcome Hit WA's Alan Aldworth and Nick Hayes from Media Stable. Alan, we'll start with you. How do you think this work model will go?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I think the idea sounds good. We have something similar where we are Jack Trouble. You're not wrong. I did nothing. Pressure prices.
Lishman on children's private school education rather than get the COVID. Told W. Lishman on working from home and whether
it changes a little. Yeah.
We have been doing it for the past 12 months or so, but it doesn't always work.
Freeway.
WA's Alan Aldworth and Nick Pulse. Today we welcome Hit WA's Alan Aldworth. Hit WA's Alan Aldworth. WA's Alan Aldworth and Nick Hayes from Media Stable. From and Nick Hayes and Nick Hayes from Media Stable. Alan, we'll start with you. How do you think this work model will go? Lishman on working from home and
it changes a little.
Yeah. We have been doing it for the past 12 months or so, but it doesn't always work. And later we chat to psychologist Marnie Lishman on working from home and whether it is right for the staff in the long term. Now, Perth nurse has told WA. Now Perth nurse has told WA today that she is willing to lose everything, including her job, her family home, her children's private school education, rather than get the COVID vaccine. WA healthcare workers need to be fully vaxxed by December. Need to be fully vaxxed by December 1 if they want to keep working in hospitals. Nick, she says that she is being pushed into a corner. Has she?
No, she hasn't. Pushed. This has been set up for a long time. And if the health workers can't work out that they need to be jabbed, then I'm going to say sayonara. I'm going to say sayonara to her. I'm going to say sayonara to her. It's sayonara to her. It's sad that you to her. It's sad that you say sayonara to her. It's sad that your job. It's sad that your job and you feel that way. But if you want to work in that kind of environment, you've got to protect yourself and protect those that you're looking after.
Alan, does it surprise you that someone is willing to put all that at risk rather than get the vaccine?
I am surprised. I am surprised. What is surprised? I am surprised. What is wrong with public schools? What is wrong with public schools? What's wrong with the kids going there? Nothing surprises me anymore. 100%. Nothing surprises me anymore. To be completely honest with you. I think you've summed it up perfectly, Nick. You're in the health industry. You're in the health industry. You need to get vaccinated. It's simple. It's really that simple. It's simple. It's really that simple, unfortunately. For her.
All right, now this may come as a shock to many. Christmas decorations are already on display in Perth. In David Jones, the department store launching their festive stock late last week. Alan, how early is too early to get into the Christmas spirit?
I say we write this year off, baby. We are at HIT where people can work from home. That's good. But then I hear team productivity and I instantly get taken back to a school group project. And that never went well. One person does all the work, the other people all chill at home. And if that's what they're getting based on, they might be in a bit of trouble.
How many points do I get if I guess which person you were?
You're not wrong. I did nothing.
Nick, is this a fad, do you think, or is this the future of workplaces offering more flexibility?
We've been doing it for the last 20 months, haven't we, Mon? I mean, you know, this pandemic that's sort of put a little bit of pressure on employers and employment, it really has made us sort of work from home and made it quite easy. Productivity hasn't dropped, so I don't think it's a fad, but I wonder what will happen when the iron prices start to drop and everyone gets a little bit nervous around money and productivity. I think that's where it gets a bit difficult. It changes a little.
We have been doing it for the past 12 months or so, but it doesn't always work. And later we chat to psychologist Marnie Lishman on working from home and whether it is right for the staff in the long term. Now, a Perth nurse has told WA Today that she is willing to lose everything, including her job, her family home, her...
Maybe I say Christmas can't come soon enough.
It's a new benchmark in streetscape appeal and is only 2 minutes from the Harrisdale Shopping Centre. To take advantage of Stage 1 buyer benefits, search PR Waters Lifestyle Resort.
Ahead, the challenge of the bib
resort and call today.
Perth researchers are using violence as a routine analyses thousands of facial protests against vaccine mandate. Perth researchers are using high-tech 3D. Perth researchers are using high-tech 3D facial scans to give us a better understanding of the genetic causes of autism. The sophisticated machine analyses thousands of points on faces to measure facial asymmetry in parents of children on the spectrum.
It's a simple scan that takes just 32 seconds and it could determine whether or not your future child will have autism. Researchers from ECU, UWA, and the Telethon Kids Institute have uncovered links between asymmetry in a person's face and the likelihood of having a child with autism.
Children with autism have faces that children with autism. Children with autism have faces that are slightly more asymmetric than the faces of non-autistic children, and in this study we're finding a similar pattern with parents.
Uncovered during a study here at UWA using this state-of-the-art 3D facial scanner. The findings coming from the study comparing the facial asymmetry of 192 parents of children with autism with 163 adults with no known history of autism. They found parents of children on the autism spectrum had more asymmetric faces than other adults of a similar age.
We use a very cutting edge. We use a very cutting edge algorithm for mapping faces across the whole cohort, and that helps us in measuring the asymmetry.
What the future holds for this study coming up in 9 News at 6.
Research during the pandemic suggests Australians are suffering work burnout more than ever before. So should we be encouraged to work for the personal life? For the
Big and small have been making.
Emus have been captured using WA's first. Emus have been captured using WA's first fauna bridge. The overpass allows animals to cross busy Tonkin Highway safely.
Animals big and small have been making the most of the overpass from the legless lizard to the emu. Located north of Ellenbrook, the bridge connects bushland on either side of Tonkin Highway, providing our furry friends with safe passage. There are 11 fauna underpasses along WA's newest stretch of freeway. The overpass is the first to be built.
The underpasses have even been termed sushi trains. You get foxes lurking around at the end of them. Whereas
veterans around the country still took a Emus have been big and been making the most of the overpass. Furry losses,
and we've got
policy with fencing and
fill material on top of the bridge here for the vegetation to grow.
And with animal escape ramps and fauna fencing, it's another way to keep not only our wildlife safe, but drivers too.
While the wreaths couldn't be laid at the memorial, veterans around the country still took a minute at home to honour the sacrifice of the men who served 50 years ago in South. Wreaths. While the wreaths couldn't While the wreaths couldn't be laid at the memorial, veterans around the country still took a minute at home to honour the sacrifice of the men who served 50 years ago in South Vietnam in the Battle of Nui Le. In the Battle in the Battle of Nui Le, in the Battle of Nui Le, in the Battle of Nui Le, in the Battle. South Vietnam in the Battle of Nui Le. Those who watched the virtual service were asked to take part in a minute's silence. The country still took a minute at home to honour the sacrifice of the men who served 50 years ago in South Vietnam.
Charging into their northern
part years ago in South Vietnam in the Battle of Nui Le. Those who watched the virtual service were asked to take part in a minute's silence and heard a retelling of events from those who served.
An enemy squad
served.
An enemy squad charging into their northern perimeter, and were faced with the ongoing threat of incoming enemy rifle fire, machine gun fire, and grenades. Darkness had fallen.
Operation Ivanhoe was Australia's last major battle in the Vietnam War. 6 men lost their lives. There are concerns more Australians are suffering from dementia with a new New report. There are concerns. There are concerns more Australians are suffering from dementia, with a new report claiming it's our second biggest killer. However, as Madeline Slattery found out, dietitians say the way we eat could help us stave off the deadly condition.
Dietitians say the best way to delay the onset of dementia is to eliminate overly processed foods from the diet. Nairi Hobbins, a specialist in brain health and ageing, says eating Hobbins, a specialist in the diet. Nairi Hobbins, a specialist in brain health and ageing, says eating natural foods as close to their original source will reduce the incidence of chronic inflammation.
Focusing on eating fewer of the ultra-processed sort of foods, the things that are a long way from the way they started, and eating more of the things that are close to the way they started is the sort of the one secret, I suppose.
Among her top suggestions are nuts and good oils rich in omega-3. She even suggests adding a teaspoon of olive oil. She even suggests adding a teaspoon of olive oil to every meal. She's also a big advocate for eating the rainbow, with colourful fruit and veg playing their part in maintaining bodily functions.
Those foods support the wear and tear on your cells and help them repair themselves.
It comes as the AIHW released a report in It comes as the
themselves.
It comes as the AIHW released a report into as the AIHW released a report into dementia in AIHW released a report into dementia in Australia, where there are around 470,000 people living with the condition. Behind heart disease, it's the second leading cause of death in Australia.
As our population ages,
in Australia.
As our population ages,
Australia.
As our population ages, the number of Australians with dementia is projected to more than double by 2058.
While making those dietary changes earlier in life will be beneficial, experts say it's never too late to start taking action. They say even after a dementia diagnosis, what you eat remains important.
Michael Thompson's at the desk next with what is coming up at 6. Plus, the 000 idiots taking resources away from real emergencies. Demolition in the dead of night. The tower many tried to save sent tumbling. And Shirley Biggs, a string of beautiful sunny days ahead.
Well, Mon, we're finally seeing spring settle in, with temperatures reaching the high 20s from tomorrow. I'll have all the details coming up right after this break.
The most important route.
New car 100
away from
police emergency. Where do
you require the pull.
Excessively loud.
News at 6 coming up short.
Thanks, Tomo. From fast food orders to noisy neighbours and excessively loud music, tonight we can reveal some of Australia's worst triples.
In 1,000 call the deletion. This is
so yes.
Annie to remain. A first edition copy of auction in New York work by.
Thanks, Mark Hopkins.
Slide.
Tonight, grand final week. Anarchy and Melbourne.
Good evening. First tonight, tributes are flowing for the scaffolder who died at CITIC Pacific's mining site. The challenge of the Bibbulmun track. Good evening. First tonight, tributes are flowing for the scaffolder who died at CITIC Pacific's mining Sino iron ore mine in the Pilbara. Mining Sino iron ore mine in the Pilbara. Two GoFundMe pages have been set up for Eugene Tarter's family. For Eugene Tarter's family in Queensland. Already they've raised over $45,000.
Eugene Tarter fell to his death at the Pilbara mine site on Friday morning. The tragedy leaving his family and workmates devastated. The 52-year-old was treated by paramedics at the scene and transported to Karratha Health Campus in a critical condition, but died on his way to hospital. He is now being remembered as a hard-working family man. GoFundMe pages have been created to raise money for his family and funeral costs. The Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union in WA took to social media to confirm reports of the death and extend their condolences to friends and family. The mine site's operators, CITIC Pacific Mining, confirmed that the scaffolder had fallen and is providing counselling to workers on site. In a statement released over the weekend, CPM extended their condolences to the man's family and workmates and say they will work closely with investigators to determine the cause of the tragedy. The incident is currently being investigated by WA Police and the Department of Mines, Industry Regulation and Safety. Maya Simpson. GWN 7 News.
A fire has ripped through Alpha. A fire has ripped through a building complex in Coolgardie, causing extensive damage to the two-storey site. Damage costs are estimated to be in the millions. The cause of the blaze isn't clear, and Kalgoorlie detectives are now investigating.
This was the scene on Bailey Street in Coolgardie just after 1 o'clock yesterday. Plumes of smoke coming from a building which has been under construction for the last 2 months.
However, there is fairly significant damage. To the building.
The fire spread fast into the top floor of the building, but emergency crews and volunteers from surrounding towns managed to get it under control in just over an hour.
Most of the community turned out to assist our volunteer fire brigades.
The Department of Fire and Emergency Services say the damage bill is around $2 million. The damage bill is around $2 million. Say the damage bill is around $2 million. However, a historic post office building has managed to survive.
No, the actual post office building itself has escaped relatively unscathed, I believe. The fire itself was in the centre of the building, which is quite a distance away from the actual post office.
The complex was in the middle of a multi-million-dollar facelift that will still go ahead, but Shire President Malcolm Cullen says there will be a delay due to the police investigation, and there will also have to be a full assessment of the damage.
So we're waiting on fire assessors, and we will probably most likely have to engage a structural engineer.
Rachel Clifford, GWN 7 News. News.
Former Federal Industry and Science Minister Christian Porter says he will recontest the seat of Pearce in the next election. Christian Former Federal Industry and Science Minister Christian Porter says he will recontest the seat of Pearce in the next election, despite resigning from cabinet at the weekend. The resignation came less than a week after he was criticised for using money from a blind trust to pay for the legal costs of his defamation action against the ABC. In a statement, the former Attorney General said he would resign because he could not reveal the identity of the people who contributed to the trust. The defamation case was centred on a story published by the ABC, which he said accused him of raping a woman in 1988, which Mr Porter vehemently denies. Australian firefighters have returned home from Canada. Have returned. Australian fire Firefighters have returned home from Canada. Have returned